Good day, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Wardy Ward, and I'm your tour guide on this educational self-help platform that can be found on YouTube at What's Up with Ward TV or wherever you get your streaming content. Our motto on this show is everybody has a story to tell, but we just want to know what's yours. If you're new to my platform, welcome. On this platform, we discuss love, life, relationships, and everything in between. We firmly believe that a stranger is just a friend you haven't spoken with yet, but I have a strong feeling that's about to change. For your information, we interview people that look like him, think like us, and resonate with people like you. I also want to encourage my listening audience to check out a hot spot known as Nap or Nothing clothing store located at 525 Massachusetts Avenue, Indianapolis, Indiana. This is a Black-owned company that's pushing the Naptown culture through fashion and design. Stop by and tell them Woody Ward sent you. Returning to the show. All right, my guest today is a couple that's currently reside in Indianapolis, Indiana. They met several years ago and they've been married since, and they're here to tell their story. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Anthony and Layla Allen to the show. What's up and how you guys doing?
Hi, we're good. We're good. Just enjoying this warm weather.
Yes, yes. I'm loving it too. So, as we were saying earlier today, it's going by pretty quick. So, hey, summer's
Got to
coming.
hold on to every second of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start out with some information about you guys. Just tell us maybe your ages, what you do for a living, and what you like most about your spouse.
I am 45 years old. For a living, I currently is a stewardship officer. And what I like most about, I call Anthony my love, my spouse. What I like most about him is that he is truly my best friend in
Ooh,
every sense of the word.
good. Ooh, okay, Anthony, so you can top that.
It's not too much for me to try to top. I'm 48, soon to be 49. I'm a housing specialist, and I call her my favorite wife.
Okay. All right. All right. So then
And the note is I am his only wife. So that's
oh,
why it's so special. He hasn't had
okay.
any other wife. So that's like an inside joke.
Okay. All right.
It hasn't been five before me. It's just me.
Just you. Good to know. All right. So did either of you two grow up in a two-parent household?
I did not. My parents very much so. They were married and separated and back and forth, but not consistently what I would consider two parent, a lot of domestic violence and addiction issues within my family system. Then my parents are very open and they speak about my father's deceased now, but not a two parent household, but I would say two parent engaged. And the difference is that I was fully aware who my parents was. My dad was involved. He wasn't always in the best condition. He did suffer from addictions, but
Okay.
he was always a relevant part of my parenting experience.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Allen?
So I grew up basically in a single parent home. My dad died soon after I was born, little roughly about 6 months after I was born. I
Hmm.
was a baby, so I've got four other siblings between my two parents, and they're much older than me. And I felt like I grew up in a household with multiple parents,
Oh yeah.
but they kept me in line.
Hmm. Now, since you kind of grew up in a single parent household, do you feel that affected your relationship in your marriage now, or did it help or hurt you, I should say?
Um, I don't think that it hurt, um, but there was a lot to learn from having older siblings. So watching and navigating life kind of through their successes and their mistakes, I kind of was able to gain a lot from that. So my oldest brother, who's deceased now, was 17 years older than me. He was born the year that he was graduated from high school the year that I was born. And the next closest to me in age, there's five of us, is 10 years older than me. So there was a lot to learn from the things that they did and what to do and what not to do.
That's a big family. What about you, Layla?
My parents, they like I said, they were not separated totally. Like we were back and forth
Uh-huh.
due to my father's addiction. He did get sober after, I became an adult. And we were able to really like maximize our relationship. But I didn't see like a consistent, healthy relationship. Like I always tell my dad, when my dad was good, he was amazing. Like when he was
Hmm.
sober, he was, we had a beautiful home. We had nice things. So I didn't go without things like that. I went to a
Yeah.
great school system. But when he was active in his addiction, alcohol was his drug of choice. It was a lot of confrontation, even down to like domestic type things. So I didn't grow up seeing a man love a woman to their full potential or treat them with the best respect at all times. And I
Hmm.
grew up with a lot of like unstableness because my dad, he would be really nice when he was sober. Once he wasn't sober anymore, he may scream, holler, put you out. You just didn't know. It was like two different people that I was encountering frequently, almost every
Hmm.
day in some instance. So for me, I took from that was like, I knew what I did not want. So
Hmm.
a lot of times I think people think, well, if you don't grow up in this cookie cutter household, that you're not going to be able to grow from that. But for me, I knew exactly like, hey, the one thing I cannot settle for is somebody who has an addiction or is battling any demons in that kind of category. Number two, I have to have somebody who's willing to bring their full potential to me every day and be consistent in who they are. So I do feel like just even with the negativity and some of the things I grew up with, the problems of my parents' relationship, they're on again and off again. I wasn't able to get involved in that because I knew the second that I broke up with somebody a couple of times, like I gotta let them go because I refuse to be a continuation of that cycle.
Hmm. Wow, that's a lot. So where did you guys grow up
GI,
at? Gary. So,
Gary,
yep. So
yeah,
that's where y'all met it in Gary?
no, I was born in Gary, Indiana. We moved quite a bit. We stayed in Milwaukee for a period, back to Gary, and I went to Maryville. I actually did not know Anthony at all in Gary. Like I took him home to meet my family, and everybody in my family knew him, but me. I was like, "Hey, I met this great guy. I love him. I want my family to meet him." They was like, "What's up, Ed Dog?" And I was like, "Everybody knew him but me." But I didn't go to the schools in Gary all the time. I went to Performing Arts High School,
Oh,
Emerson VPA, and then I went to I graduated from Maryville High School. So I
okay.
didn't always be engaged in like, like the inner city of Gary all the time. So I really didn't get a chance to run into him. And the funny thing is like both of my grandmothers lived a couple miles from him. I don't know how we never
Hmm.
met because we was going to the same candy stores and rocking
Yeah.
in the same hood.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
met him in college? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we met at Uipui, IUPUI. It's Indiana University of Indianapolis now. Indiana University of Indianapolis now, but we met when it was IUPUI, Uipui.
Okay. Were you gonna say something, Anthony? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was just thinking about I know one of the grandmothers that I grew up not too far from. It was probably less than a mile, to be honest with you. No more than two for sure. But it was just right down the railroad tracks. I mean, it would have taken. It was probably it's less than a 10-minute walk. So that's how close it was that we grew up around each other, and it's just crazy knowing all those family members of hers, and she was a few years younger than me, so we would have met maybe in high school if we would have went to the same high school, but she probably would have been like a sophomore or a freshman when I was a senior.
Yeah. So if I'm clear on this, you guys met at IUPUI, but you lived in Gary. So you left Gary to go to IUPUI?
Yes, I came to IUPUI like
Interesting.
97. I came to IUPUI. And at the time when I relocated down here to go to the university, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just stay for 2 years. But it's been 26 years now. I'm still in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Um, I
Okay.
didn't fell in love with it, but I came down here originally to go to IUPUI, and I had two children while I was at IUPUI. I had a kid my freshman year of college, and I had a kid my junior year of college. And
Okay.
I want to say I met Anthony. I want to say it was my sophomore year of college. No, yeah, I first met him my sophomore year because the first time we talked, I don't know if I had my daughter yet, the second daughter yet.
Hmm. So how did y'all actually meet? He was just walking by, was it love first sight? Did you approach him or what happened?
We did a program together. It's called America Reads, AmeriCorps program. We both are AmeriCorps alumni.
Yeah.
And that is a federal program where you like do a stipend and do service within the community. And our
Mhm.
service grant that we were working under, we were providing reading assistance to inner city schools and local communities. And I was super passionate about making a difference in my community, doing social service and social work. And I signed up for this program, and I had been there a little bit longer than Anthony when he started. But the funny
Mhm.
thing was when he first came along, he was like friends with my brother. Like when he
Okay.
came into the program, him and my brother was there. I have my sister-in-law now. She was working in the program too. And Anthony started, and as soon as he started, they gave him a promotion to be like the team lead of one of the sites. And I
Mm.
got furious because my younger brother had applied for the same
Oh,
position.
wow.
So my brother's being really good friends with him. They played basketball and hung out together. And I told my brother, like, you shouldn't be friends with this guy. He stole your job. And he was like, what? I was like, no, like, I was like, there's no way you should have got that job. I'm like, I'm the team lead. You're my brother. You know this. This guy that shows up, he's probably trying to date one of those girls. He's doing something because for him to come along, for them to give him the job over my perfect brother, something had to be wrong. So I started hating on him like
Mhm.
immediately, like within a couple of months to find out who he was. And my brother's like, I ain't got no issue with him. He probably just more qualified. And in my mind, I just like, nah, he stole
Okay.
your job. So I was like, he's the enemy. He can't be our friend.
Uh-huh.
And they
Wow.
and they, they were the best of friends at the time.
Yeah, me and my
Okay.
brother were like, Ick and Mick. If you saw me, you saw my brother. Like Anthony's like, I ain't never seen two like opposite sex siblings
Yeah,
together all the time. My brother had his own cereal at my house. So if that tells you how close we were,
there it
like I was
is.
like, you can't
Yeah.
have that cereal. That's my brother's cereal.
Yes. So how did y'all two link up then? Because it seemed like y'all started out with a behind the eight ball here. So how do we bring this full circle?
Uh, I remember we just started like we had a couple classes together. We had sex, lies, and videotape. I think that was the class we had that semester
Lies
at
and
school.
videotape.
Yeah, it was IUP as a class called Sex, Lies, and Videotape. It dealt with like social media, lies, and etc.
Okay.
So we had that class together. We had when we would be on campus, I would always see him. He'd be like, "Hey, you want me to walk your class?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine, whatever."
Mhm.
And then we
Yeah.
just start having conversations like, "You want to study?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." And before you know it, we all my brother's like, "Hey, let's go to lunch on Tuesdays or Thursday. We go to this Chinese restaurant we call it Chickens, but it wasn't chickens like 38th Street. We just eat chicken
It,
there.
it, it was roosters. We were what we
Rooster.
One of the birds. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, we would go there for lunch, and being a college student, I didn't have any money. He was like, "Yeah, I get your lunch." So I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going." My brother's like, "He's
Right.
gonna get your lunch." So my brother had fell in love with him. My sister-in-law, they was like, "Yeah, we like him for you," and I'm like, "No, we just friends." So this went on maybe like 6 months or so. We
Okay.
always just studying,
Mhm.
going to lunch together, just hanging out, and then sometimes he would come over to the house. All of us college kids just hanging out, talking or whatever, and
Yes.
then Anthony was just like, "Hey, you want to hang out some more?" And so it never really felt like we were dating initially. It just felt like I just had this amazing friend.
He
What
was smooth.
about you, Anthony?
He was just so smooth.
that's pretty much how it happened. I feel like sometimes when people are talking about how they met and how they ended up evolving, the stories don't line up. But that's
Right.
pretty much happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
was really just a friendship, and like, he would help me with concepts. I remember we'd just be at the library real late at night, studying. And I had the two younger kids because I had a 2-year-old and a um
Or
yeah, but my daughter wasn't even 2 yet. She was like 1.5. And so I'm
mhm.
like, like I need to study, have being a single mom at the time, I didn't have transportation all the time. Like my car broke down. He was like, "Oh, you can use my car, or I'll pick you guys up and drop you off." And he was just always there. Like I didn't even have to ask. Like I just tell him, like, I'm having this problem getting to campus. Like, well, I can help you get to campus that day. I catch the bus, you can use my car, like making like huge sacrifices. Like, I'm gonna give you my car so you can get to school. And I was like, man, I ain't never met nobody who's like that would make that kind of sacrifice for you. But from day one, like the way he embraced my kids, I remember we went to a meeting for AmeriCorps, And he had brought donuts in, and my daughter had came to the meeting with me and sat on my lap, and he was like, hey, I got a special donut for you. And he gave my daughter like all these donuts. So then she started farting, like pooting on my lap. She was a little girl. I didn't knock my camera over. And so she started pooting on my lap, and he's dying laughing. Like he's cracking up, and I'm like embarrassed because we were like sitting at this table, all these people at the meeting, and my daughter's just farting, and they just like agging each other on, and I'm like, oh my god, and I knew right then, I was like, man, this is a good friend, not just for me, because he also had like this like connection with my kids right away.
That's always good.
Yeah,
so that kind of came from me helping raise my nephews and nieces, because like I said, I was so much younger than everybody else, and by the time I was like in middle school, my siblings were starting to have kids, so I was kind of out with that. So I guess the nurturing heart was always present. And I grew up with one of my nephews in our house. He was just a few years younger than me, but when you're a small kid living at home and you got somebody who's 5 years younger than you, that 5 years seems like a whole lifetime. And, but once you become adults, it's almost like you guys are like the same age. But, kind of help trying to keep him in line and stuff and making sure everything was okay with him. It just was like second nature, just being around, helping raise kids, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. So Anthony,
kids don't come with instructions or a blueprint.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It seems like that you were doing all the right things. Did you know early on that she was the one, or was you just trying to be friends with her? Was you thinking, yeah, she might be the one? What was your intention?
Always genuinely being myself. So there was no ulterior motive behind it.
Okay.
There was anything about I wonder if things are gonna turn into something else with her. It just turned into something else.
Okay.
I remember he took me to dinner, took me to Red Lobster. I think we had been like 6 months into this, going back, just hanging out, my brother hanging out with us. It's sort of like blurred line, like we weren't really dating, but we always together, because he had asked me out like maybe 2 years prior, and I think I just got pregnant with my second daughter, and I didn't want to tell nobody that I wasn't with the dad, so I was like, no, I don't have time for a boyfriend. So this time, it was like 6 months after us consistently hanging out, he sat me down, he's like, look, we've been going out for like 6 months. And I was, what? He was like, yeah, you and I, we've been dating for 6 months. And I was like, dating? I don't feel like we've been out. So we just go to Chuck E. Cheese after class. You go to laundromat and help me wash the kids' clothes. We have dinner together. We go to restaurants with my brother. I was like, is that dating? He was like, all those things are dating. He was like, you're not about to put me in a friend bucket and then go meet somebody else and be like, oh, that's my best friend. He was like, I'm not about to be investing all my time. He was like, I like you more than a friend. And if you about to put me in a friend bucket, let me know today, because I'm about to treat you different. It ain't gonna be this. And I remember this in there like, but I ain't got time for no boyfriend. I was like, I'm on a mission. I got 2 little kids. I need to focus on being their mother, whatever. And he was like, I got you. I told you since the day I met you, we've been friends. I've been there for the girls too. And he was like, I wouldn't ask you this unless I was thinking about them, and I'm going to accept them and you. So he was like, we can do this, but it ain't gonna be no question mark while I'm your really good friend and you just walk away with some other dude. So we gonna be together or what? And I was just like, I didn't got time for that. He's like, you got to let me know something. And I remember this thinking like, he's like, we already been together. We together every day. And I didn't even realize that every day we had already been together. Like we was just like, he'd come to my house, help me with this, we'll do that, we'll study. He'd just leave real late. And it was like, I guess we are already dating. So I was like, okay, we can do this.
Snacking up on you. Wow.
That's pretty much.
Go ahead.
That's pretty much how it happened.
Okay.
Past experience, I dated some girls, and it pretty much was like, we're not together. And I was like, oh, okay, I thought we were. And then if I'd have known sooner, I'd have dealt with them differently. I just didn't want to be in that position again. So I just need to find out. I need, I like people that are straightforward, and she's very straightforward. And I appreciate that. My mom was like that too. There was no question about where they stood on things.
That's good.
I had to think about it for a second, because even he asked me, my youngest daughter had just turned 2, and I remember I had told him, I said, I'm giving her a birthday party, and I thought like just telling him about the party was like an invite, like you coming back through, we having a party. And he didn't show up. And I remember feeling like, dang, he didn't even come. Like, what's the deal? Like, he always here. Why he didn't come? And like, that's when he sat me down the next week and asked me about his, girlfriend. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Because he was like, I'm not about to be showing up at your kid's party, and all this stuff. And people like, who is he? He just my brother friend. Because I literally was introduced to the people like, oh, he my coworker. Oh, he my brother friend. Or he my study partner. So he was like 10 different things. And all my friends were like, y'all together. I'm like, no, we just good.
Anthony, did you hit it with the is you is, the is you ain't?
Yes, that's what the Red Lobster Day was about. He was like,
wow. Okay, well, it seems like you guys have a very good, strong relationship there. I'm curious, how did y'all handle disagreements or differences in those early stages? Or did y'all have disagreements? Was it just fluid all along, or did y'all have any bumps and bruises along the way?
It was difficult at first, me being a single mom, because when I got with him, my second daughter hadn't turned 2 yet. We had been talking like prior to her being 2, and I had a 4-year-old. So I had a lot of trauma that was coming out of a prior relationship with their dad, and a lot of trust issues and things that I brought along with myself that wasn't like him. And I just felt like, in the back of my mind, being a single mom and being a college student, was like, I don't really have to worry about nobody else. I got to make it for me and mine. Like at the end of the day, it don't. And so I had this wall of like, I couldn't trust nobody. I couldn't trust somebody to take care of anything because I couldn't fail my daughters. I had to make sure that they see me show up for them at the best every day. So I think that caused a lot of problem at first, because my attitude was to have to be so cocky, but it was like to protect myself. And I remember I would always say, well, whenever I got mad, like, well, I don't need nobody anyway. I got this. I got me and mine. And I would be just cocky like that. And it was to me to protect myself, because in the back of my mind, I felt like I was growing more and more needing him. And then I was like, what about if he wake up one day like their dad and decide he didn't want to be here anymore? So I thought it would be easier if I kept that guard up to be like, I don't need you like that. I'm good,
Yeah.
Wow. So it took a while. And then he literally had to tell me, every time I would tell him like, I'm good. If we don't work out, it's fine. I got us, like I would get in, like I would say that, and he'd be like, I love you. You don't have to talk to me like that. He was like, we can have disagreements.
It wasn't that nice.
It wasn't that nice, but I'm a pepper. I ain't gonna lie. I'm very spicy. Okay. So I would go off and have my head going and cussing and everything. And he taught me how to fight. Yeah. He told me, he was like, you don't have to say hateful stuff. Because I thought fighting was what I seen with my parents. I thought fighting was what I went through with my father. I thought fighting was, and say the worst thing you know about that person. And he was like, I love you. Like I would cuss him out, and he'd be like, I love you. Why are you coming at me like this? And I'm like, but you don't know me like that. He was like, nah. We together. That's not necessary. I love you too much for us to ever operate like that. And he taught me how to fight in a productive way for what I believe in, but not to come across each other, So we started having conversations about differences and not actual fights, where we can say, okay, we disagree about this. When a lot of those things were like money, credit. Because I was not worried about those things. And Anthony was like, hey, we want to get to a certain place in life. You're going to have to tighten up, and you have to change your spending habits, and you have to care about your credit. And at first it took me a while. I ain't gonna lie. I wasn't a person that wanted to listen to him, but he kept showing me time and time again how it would impact our relationship. Like you want to buy a house, you want to be able to get a car. Look at this rate that you get. You paying 10%, you get your credit right, you can pay 2%. And I can tell you today, like I have a credit score like 820, 45, is it 25 or 45 at? And I would not have that with my husband. Because when I met him, I did not care. I was just like, they'll get their money if they catch me.
Right. Yeah. No, that seems like he was a very forward thinking at such a young age. You must have a lot of hair back then, Anthony. Was that what it was?
Took all though.
Say it again.
She took all of it.
Oh, okay.
Blame that on the kid, not on me.
on all of y'all there.
Did you, since you were so strong in your thinking, Layla, I want to ask you, was it hard to let him lead then, growing up
It
with
was.
the background? And so what by him being, I guess, calm, that kind of helped you to eventually do it, or was it friends
It
and
was
family encouraging you to?
no, because most of my family had the same mentality.
Oh, wow, Gary.
Well, well, not my mom. My mom is a very passive woman, but I didn't want to be like her. So that was like the one person I didn't want to be like because she's too passive. So I thought being rough, like having my guards up, was going to make me be stronger. But I would say he loved me through it. Like even though I was at my worst at times, I could say whatever. He always let me get it all out. He would walk away, never
Mm,
like curse me or anything. And then if I will tell you this, you keep screaming at somebody, they don't scream back, you gonna stop screaming. And I know that sounds crazy, but it made me think about, okay, this is not moving the bar, nothing's changing. He would come back to me like I was two and say, "Are you ready to talk yet?" And I'm like, who,
very
who
good.
but it
Mhm.
made me think like, okay, I gotta talk to him different. And it
Yeah.
just made me change my approach. And I love him for that because he taught me how to fight fair. He taught me what matters. Because
Mhm.
I think sometimes if you don't see that exhibited, how to be healthy and how to go through conflicts. So I would say it was just him having patience and his due diligence. And we got into church together at one point in our relationship before we got married. I want to say, like in the second year of our relationship, we started going to church together.
Okay.
And we had some examples at the church and some of my
Mhm.
older family members that were married. And we saw them, it's nothing better than to see healthy relationships around you. And before we got married 18 years ago, September 2nd, we actually had premarital counseling. Our pastor, Pastor Bowden at Walking the Light Christian Church, he set us down and we told him our intentions. We totally wanted to get married. He was like, I want to do premarital counseling with you guys. And I felt like that was the best thing ever happened to us because we really discussed the roles of a husband and wife. And being a wife does calls for you to step back and not be the leader but you have to trust. I think people don't realize that most
Yes.
women, it's not that they don't want to trust, it's that you can't trust, especially if you ever had any period of time of being a single mother. Because I had times when I was like, okay, how I'm gonna pay these bills or how I'm gonna do that. But somebody has to show up for you consistently and strongly
Mhm.
where you don't have to worry about that. It's nothing that ever came up that me and Anthony have went through. He has not showed up and showed out and I never had to worry about anything. So eventually I realized I could trust him. So now I tell the simplest story. Like my friends, like, what do you want to do this? It's not that if I want to do something, I need permission, but being under my husband, I want his support in everything. So I don't
Right.
go to him like, babe, can I do this? I'm like, babe, this is my interest. What do you think? Because
Mhm.
I know that he's not going to lead me down the wrong way. So if he's like, not
Mhm.
right now, that's not a good idea. I respect that because the way he's always moved in such a leadership role to show me that it's always going to be about God, me, and everybody else. After that, he's been a provider and a protector from day one. So
Mm.
I don't question it. And I don't have a problem falling back in that role as being a more submissive wife.
Right. Oh, that's impressive. I don't
But
know
it took time. This didn't happen overnight, right,
that.
Anthony?
Okay.
It took time and prayer.
Okay.
And
It did.
18 years.
And I would say that it wasn't like that going into the marriage, and it kind of took. I couldn't really give you examples or a time frame, but I'll probably say about because maybe about 5 years or so. I would say I couldn't tell you a specific thing or something that may have happened that may have caused that whole change with her calming down. She still gets us upset about stuff. That's just her personality. But I think
Mhm.
really important is when you're dealing with someone who's very vocal about stuff, it might not always come out the right way. You
Right.
got to focus on the message and not the delivery. So
Ooh.
a lot of times my mom, she's upset going off about whatever. And it's like you got to really focus on what it is that she's trying to get me to understand versus what's coming out of her mouth. And
Yes.
that kind of prepared me for life when dealing with, I'll say a hostile situation because I'm not very confrontational about stuff. But when I am in those situations, I have to be aware of what whoever it is I'm engaged with is trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, very in tune with, what people are trying to accomplish. And I have my guard up a lot about ulterior motives.
Yeah.
Just protecting myself that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think what it was is life happened. Those 5 years, the first 7 years were very hard. And we started facing some really tough challenges, as far as like our parents' health. I lost my dad. My dad got diagnosed with cancer. Just life happens. And as life is happening and you have somebody who got you, like I feel like my dad was comfortable knowing that he was not going to be here because he knew that my husband had me to a degree of like he could leave this earth and know that I was going to be okay because I had a man that was going to definitely make sure I was okay. So it's always been consistent, provider, protector, showing up for me regardless. And after I realized that consistently every time, it was like, okay, what are you got this wall for? Because he got you at the end of the day. You are him, he's you. He's never going to lead you wrong.
Yep. Pops was cool. He was a cool guy. I liked hanging out with him. He's the same age as my brothers, and well, just maybe a little bit older. My brothers, maybe a year or two than what my oldest brother would have. But it was no different than hanging out with him because I hung out with my oldest brother that was murdered. It's been almost 31 years to the date when I think about it because it was the summer going into my senior year in high school. And it happened about a week after so it would have been three brothers and a sister. My sister's the middle child. And it happened in August of 1993. So, and it was right between their birthdays. My older brother and sister's birthdays are both in August. So it was, right, probably, within a day or two, 31 days to the date. So, yeah, Dad hanging out with him was just like hanging out with one of them when I was younger, especially my oldest brother, because I was always sneaking off, going places with him, going places that I shouldn't have been. My brother also battled with substance abuse issues, but I was I was his shadow. Anybody who was around during that time would tell you the same. But that was my guy right there. So hanging out with her dad was a lot of fun because we were just talking about stuff that, being his son-in-law or soon to be son-in-law, guy dating his daughter or whatever, I didn't feel comfortable talking to him about, but he didn't care. He just was a straight shooter, just talking about, fun to be around.
Yes. So
And,
go ahead, Ava.
And then I would say, I saw this relationship started bobbing with him and the girls. When we were in college, Anthony would have classes and literally the girls would like sit next to him and he would read his college text, no matter what class he was taking, he would read them to the girls. And
that's smart.
Our eldest, Laylakesha, she instantly just like, she would call him my Anthony for years. That she like, my Anthony is my Anthony that. And the baby girl, she always called him dad because, that's all she knew. Their dad was involved as well, but he was every day. He was consistently there every day. So they would call their dad, and she would say, my Anthony. And then one day she was like, she started calling him dad as well. But it was just like this relationship he had with them as well. Like he took time. He was very patient with them. He taught them to ride their bikes. He taught them, like constantly giving them life lessons, talking to them about cleaning stuff. Like right now, if you interview my daughters, they were like, my mom ain't told me nothing, which sort of made me feel like, why was I even here? But no, they would say, my dad taught me how to do laundry the best. My dad taught me how to clean this and all these things because he really was very intentional about raising them, about being young women and giving them tools to use for their life. And like to this day, our girls are very established young women up into like savings. Like when they got their first jobs, like, Dad, what should I do? He like put 50% of your money away because you don't have any bills right now. And they listen, like, and now they're like 26 and 23, and they have savings, and they have things that, they benefit from having that father there who, just gave them the business and taught them early, invest in yourself and, really be intentional about taking care of yourself and making sure you're a good person before you found that spouse, because you want to bring something to the table as well.
Absolutely. Now, when you guys got married, what expectations did you have of the other person? I mean, you clearly knew each other, but were there, because when I got married, I didn't know I thought I knew what marriage was, but I really didn't discuss it.
I think our pastor did really well about that. He talked about what's the role of the wife and what's the role of the husband. And I thought that was so weird because every time we went to that class, I was like, why you keep talking about the same thing? What's the role of the wife? I'm like, but now, since we've been married all these years, I get it. I understand that it was really intentional to start getting our minds turning to know your roles. And at that time, I probably wasn't operating within the role that I needed to be in. But with time, I've learned how to operate as a wife. And one thing I do encourage everyone is counseling is not just for premarital. I will say that you should keep a toolbox of things you can use to help your relationship. Like, you don't go in the kitchen and got one knife. You got several knives. When you go do repairs, you don't have one screwdriver. You got screwdrivers, hammers, and everything. So you need to have that same thing for you when you operate in a relationship. And my toolbox, therapy is one of those things. Anthony and I have went to therapy several times throughout our marriage. And I would tell people, you don't have to wait until the wheels coming off to get it fixed. If you're starting to have some distance there, if you're not communicating the best, or if you're going through grief, like losing a parent, we lost a child as well, it's time to tap into some of those tools and go to therapy. And the therapy, Miss Charlotte, we met this older woman through the church, and she did our counseling. And it was like, she always gave us these tools as well. Like, hey, you got to date. And when you have little kids, dating takes a back seat because you're just trying to cook dinner, clean, go to work. And I was in college too. I have 2 degrees. I have an MBA and I have an undergrad degree. And she was like, no, but you have a husband. And Anthony would always tell me, he said, these kids gonna get grown, they're gonna leave us, then what? And when my kids, they were little, I was like, my kids never gonna leave. I don't know what you're talking about. But he was right on it. They get grown and they leave. And if you don't have a relationship and you don't have intimacy with each other, that's not going to just come back. So I would say, make sure that you stay in counseling. Like, I have no problem with us frequently going to therapy and taking that time to really be intentional about each other and not going to friends or family, because friends and family, they're going to ride with their people. My mom's going to ride with me. His sister's going to ride with him. We know that. So it's better to get a neutral person there that's going to be able to tell both of you, hey,
you ride.
Huh?
Sometimes your people ride with me, though.
I know. I don't have no loyalty. They ain't no loyalty. I don't know.
Wow.
Everybody just love Anthony. I don't know. Sometimes that's why I need a therapist, because she ain't gonna ride with me.
Well, I'm glad y'all did go see a therapist, because a lot of times, especially in the African American culture, I find a lot of people don't embrace it as well as other cultures. But hearing you speak about it, it seems like it's definitely beneficial.
Yeah, it's just one of the things I think this has been so helpful in our marriage. I would say we've been a couple of times, and every time it's when we're going over a very difficult period, and I will tell you, or we just need somebody to help connect us to make sure we're on the right point. It's just been good stuff. Like, I remember one time she was like, be intentional, date each other every week. And it was like, we had got so out in a routine of doing everything that making a date every week was hard. And it doesn't have to be like a restaurant date. It was like literally just, go to a park and push each other and have a conversation, text each other questions, ask what's going on with your day, be intentional about being in each other's life. And once you start doing it again, it becomes easy again. But it's so easy to get into the ins and outs of just everyday life that your spouse just end up getting on that back burner. And food that you put on the back of the ovens burn the quickest because you're not checking the temperature of it.
Absolutely. One definition I have down here is for communication. I said, it's a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, words, and behavior. You two have several years under your belt. So you've mentioned about your communication style. How do you express something that you don't like now since you have that counseling and that experience? How would you tell him now? Is it blunt or is it more softer now?
I would say that I'm still straight, very few chasers. I'm still a very blunt person, but I don't feel the need to say it at that moment.
Okay.
If it's not, I don't feel the need to be as urgent.
Or attack.
Yes. And I can address the issue now and not the person. Would you say that? And that's what you used to always tell me. You need to address the issue, not the person. We need to talk about the issue.
Right. Attack the problem.
So now I can say, I can detach it from being him or whoever it is and say, this is my concern without attacking him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That brings us to our next question. A friend of mine, he likes to go out and buy every tool he sees at the store. I don't know if Sears is still around, but I know in his garage, he's got Sears Jr. in there. And his wife kind of gets upset about that because she's like, you don't need all these tools. Why do you keep getting this? So the way she balances out, she'll go out and buy a new dress or a shirt every time he buys a new wrench or something. So I was wondering, how do you guys handle the financial aspect of your relationship? I know you have a great credit score, but do you have to clear with another person before you buy something, or is there a certain amount you can do, or do you guys have separate bank accounts? How does that work for you guys?
I think everybody have to do what works for them. I do feel like there's no solution for everybody. For us, we do have separate accounts and we have joint expenses and we do what works for us. I think you have to keep reevaluating what's working and what's not working. And for me, I would say Anthony's the better stewardship of money. Like that's something that he has a strength in. I have strengths, he has strengths.
Mm-hmm.
He's the stewardship of finances. And he's able to look more long term. And he doesn't look at money to pay bills. He look at what money can do for us and not just what it can pay. So it's a different perspective. So I think both of us like stuff. You know, we in a capitalist society. He's a sneakerhead. I just like stuff in general, makeup, anything. I just like it. But we do try to be respectful of each other when we're making these purchases. And when it becomes too much or we feel like we're going in a bit, we have conversations. What you think? Don't you feel the same, man?
So when it comes to spending, I think I don't know what a major purchase is, but anytime we're going to be buying something that potentially is for the house, I think those conversations, regardless of what the price point is, kind of comes up from, especially if it's something that's going to be used by everybody, like a vacuum cleaner
Mm-hmm.
or, coffee makers, blenders,
Cars.
That's that's like a major expense. I'm just talking about like furniture, like that's a major expense. I think stuff that we're going to be, I like to have input from not just her, but maybe the kids sometimes too about certain things because it's going to impact their lives too. So, but when it comes to spending, I feel like as long as you're not, or whoever, just speaking in general, if it's not having an impact on anything else in the household as far as being able to take care of other bills and stuff like that, all things in moderation, as long as it's not causing any problems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, for the most part, I don't think there really needs to be a conversation or asking, can I do this? Because at what point, when does it stop? Asking permission to do stuff. We're adults. I would hope that people that are, in relationships are able to respect their partner enough to know what things are going to be a problem. Don't bring certain things in the house are going to be an issue for your partner, or that may be a stumbling block for an issue that they may have. My wife doesn't have any issues with any substance abuse or alcoholism or anything like that. But if she did, I would know not to bring certain things around her that would be a temptation for her. So just being respectful of that person,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully the person is being honest and straightforward about what things they have issues with, because we're not mind readers. We can't, just automatically assume or know certain things about our partners. We think we do, or we assume things. But you just want to, I think, be, respectful. Say, hey, I was thinking about getting blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that? And that's pretty much how I think we roll with
most
with
stuff. And I would say the other thing that worked for us, we don't really have no vices. Like neither one of us gamble or have any addictions or like where we're just like out here spending any like large amount of money or anything. Because we don't have those vices, money is not like going out anywhere. We spend most of our time at work and at home with our family. And so when we're making purchases, we're typically together.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
She's online.
Okay.
Buying.
Oh, she likes to shop online. Okay, so so Layla, you're a shopper. That may be your thing. You like you said he's a sneakerhead, so you like to shop just with buying what clothes or just anything.
Anything. I like gadgets. I got all kind of kitchen gadgets. It's just different stuff. I go through seasons of different stuff. But I will be like, okay, for my birthday, I want that new Ninja, whatever, So sometimes I'll just make it a gift for a season or something. I'm not going to just go to like just buy a system. I don't have like a room full of stuff I'm not using or just to buy it. And both of us are very practical on expenses. We both are like values bargain kind of people. Like we are always looking to get stuff for a better deal. So for when we get stuff, like when people see me like, oh, I like your dress, I'm like, oh, I got it for $7 and it's Nike. Like that's us. We really want to like always get the best bang for the dollar. So when Value City was open, we lived there getting the kids clothes, just stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that was my spot.
Yeah, so we always, I think that helps us too, because we both are very conscious about, we like nice stuff, but we don't like to pay the top of the line price for it, and we don't value ourselves on our stuff. Like a lot of couples I know, they think, oh, well, we got to drive a certain car, we got to have a certain house. One thing I'm very happy about is my husband, he doesn't really care about those things that much. He likes gym shoes. That's something, but his value is not whether or not he has those shoes. We don't have to have Gucci belts and this and that because we're not trying to entertain anybody. It's just like we get what we like. Some stuff we have labels, some stuff we don't have labels. It's just what we're into at that time. And because we are not trying to like keep up with the Joneses or impress anybody. So I think we're very comfortable in who we are as people. Working in social service fields for so many years, seeing so many people without, it just gives you a better appreciation for what you have. And it just makes you realize that at the end of the day, all that stuff can't go with you. It doesn't matter if you spend, it's a belt. It don't matter if you spend $500 for the belt or $5 for the belt. It's going to hold your pants up. So it's just like where your values at and how much are you willing, how many hours of work are you willing to pay for that belt?
Yeah. A lot of these young people need that belt. Speaking of young people, I want to transition over to kids. I know you said you had 2 kids before. My first question is, what's the relationship like with their father and your relationship? Now, I know that can be a challenge. And then I'll go to my next question after that.
I would say that thank goodness I'm done with that part of my life. It was very stressful. It's tension when you're raising kids and co-parent. But I would say the thing that helped me the most was my husband. He was an amazing partner through that process of co-parenting. My kid's father, we went through some very difficult times. He was married at the time, and I was married when the kids are fairly young. So basically, most of their childhood, both of us had different spouses. So it was a lot of conflict between us, but my husband was always able to keep me more level-headed about it. Things that made me angry, he would say, you know what, he always thinks the best of everybody. He's always thinking about the intentions, not on how things come across. Because he said it's the perception and then what you intended to do. So I may think like you inconvenienced me, but was that his intention? No, that's just the way I perceived it. So he always made sure that, when I get upset and stuff, that, hey, you got to look at it on both ends of the coin. What was his intention? So how are you perceiving it? And I'm very thankful that him and I, we had our difficulties throughout the marriage. My husband and him were able to, I would say, form a certain degree of respectful relationship, as well as him and I. And we were able to be there for the girls. Like his mother would come and stay with us in this every year for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, every year. And then my husband treated his mother like, she's still living, but he treated her mother like when the kids was here, like it was her mother. We call her mom. And she was here and she cooked and cleaned and spent time with us because he told me, he said, what's most important is that the girls know that they're loved. And he was like, you can't have too much love. So why would we shut his mother out, shut his aunts and uncles out, shut their dad out? We want them to feel complete. And we want to give the best that we can give to them. So their dad was able to come in our house, go to the kids' rooms, all the celebrations. He participated, his family participated at our house for graduations, whatever it was. We always had a very open door policy. And I would say, I thank my husband for keeping me grounded, because I think sometimes you can be emotional. And I think that's what some people are like, well, why do baby mamas and baby daddies always are fighting? I think it's because it's so much emotion there. You so much like, what is he trying to say to me? What's going on? You can't separate what's best for the kids and how you feel emotionally. And he would kind of say, well, this has nothing to do with that. Let's deal with this. The what's best for the kids. Is it best for them? And I'm like, yes. Okay. He said, well, then put your emotions aside and do what's best for the kids. And I think my kid's father respect him for that. To this day, they shake hands when they see each other. And he always tell them, I respect you for being their dad as well. He looks at them as a second dad and help raising them, because and the girls have never said anything negative to their dad about him. So I think I lucked out in that field, having somebody that was mature enough to be a parent to somebody else's daughters.
Yeah. How did y'all navigate the discipline of the children? Because I know one guest I had came on, he stated he was okay with financially supporting a child, but then he disciplined a child and he ended up in jail. Did you guys have any issues with that?
No. Our girls weren't really like hard discipline. What you think, Aunt?
They kids, I think, appreciate consistency more than anything. So as long as they know that certain behaviors come with consequences, then as long as you're consistent in doing so, then you can kind of anticipate certain things to happen and not happen in regard to behavior. So we have a friend who had a young son, and she would constantly threaten him with consequences. And I talked to her, and she took it, and she wasn't offended by me saying what I thought about it. I said, you shouldn't threaten him. You should let him know what the consequences are going to be if this happens, and be done with it. You constantly threatening him, and he's constantly testing boundaries to see, is she going to do what she said that she's going to do this time? And, and sometimes he would get in trouble, sometimes he wouldn't. So I think that that's very confusing to a kid, or to anybody for that matter, on what's appropriate and what's not. So, and then once the consequences come down, the person who's receiving the consequences are just kind of confused. Well, I've been able to do X, Y, and Z all this time. Why are you making such a big deal out of it now? So you have to be consistent in how you talk to him about behaviors. So I feel like that was something that was very clear, because I've always been pretty consistent in who I am with them and everybody that I come in contact with. At least I try to. Those are my intentions. I don't know if it always ends up being that way, but those are my intentions. And I've, some people, feel like a child or a young person doesn't deserve the respect that they would give an adult. And I disagree. I feel like they have feelings. The things that we say and do to them impact them in their development. So I never want to cause any problems for anybody. So I was just always trying to be consistent and fair. Being fair is a big thing as well.
I agree with that.
I think something that most people don't realize that becomes like, you think your kids become grown, that the parenting thing is over, but in adulthood, it continues in the relationship with your parents, and that's something I think that's been even more challenging. I feel like Anthony has navigated that better than I have. Like losing that, being able, like you lose all the fact that discipline, they're no longer under your, guidance, and being able to just be a better person, like having a relationship with them and having that bond with them where they come to them for trust and conversation, because they feel like I may be more abrupt. That's the word. But whereas he's a very much so more patient, and he listens to hear and not to give answers and feedback. And sometimes I can be a person that want to solve problems and not listen to just allow people to solve their own problems. So,
and one thing I think that a lot of people use discipline with punishment. It's really about self-control for that's what you want the child to learn. It's self-control. It's not really about strictly punishing them, whether it's, limiting freedoms or, with corporal punishment. So it's you want them to understand why whatever it is they did was wrong, and it comes with consequences. And a lot of people react out of emotion, and the child never really understands why they got in trouble, because there was no clear boundaries established prior to the behavior.
Mm. Yeah, I see. But I know, like my daughter, she wanted to date this guy in North Carolina. And, we lived in Indianapolis, and I tried to discourage her from doing that, and because we down the road a little further than our kids, and I struggle with trying to not force my viewpoint on her, but she found out the hard way that he had several girlfriends, and she went to see you visit him. The whole big mess. I said to ask this: what is the biggest challenge that you faced with your kids? What you did, and how did you guys overcome that issue or issues?
I think the biggest challenge with the two eldest kids, because it's like two different cycle of kids, because we got two that's adults and then we got one that's 15 that's left behind. But the eldest ones, they're very high achievers. And so a lot of people assume that if you have high achiever kids, kids with like over 4.0 GPAs, that they don't have any challenges. And some of the challenges we had with them was the opposite of some people. Like some people have to motivate their kids to work hard. Our challenge was to give them to balance, to make sure that they were being a kid, because they had these type A personalities where they wanted to excel and they wanted to compete with even amongst each other. That sometimes it was just like telling them that, it's not a race. It's the world will make room for your gifts, and it's okay to move at your own pace. So it was really awkward because I don't think you get a lot of support for that when you are dealing with that type of personality type. People assume that it's only one personality type. So that was a challenge with the eldest two. With the youngest, it's so funny that we got the opposite coin. So he's the more laid back one. And so now we're trying to balance out, lighting some fire under him. So I think it's just a funny thing that we had to like pull two off of trying to excel. So overcome, like breathe, girl. You don't have to study 24/7. We had a daughter who used to bring her flashcards to dinner every night. But she's a biomedical engineer now. So
Okay.
So, but she was doing this when she was in 10th grade, made like straight A's. And so she wanted to always put your flashcards up. I'm gonna take your books, like since they were little, it's like the weirdest thing, having to force them to like be a kid to enjoy that time. So we were just really blessed with not any problematic kids. And I think the challenge is that sometimes your household has different rules. In our household, we really try to prepare them for adulthood. And some of those things that I think that in our Black community overall, it takes precedence, like, dating very young or being in relationships. I feel like that stuff can wait for later. And I feel like other communities have benefit from that. Mostly of international families don't participate in a lot of things that our culture does, as far as Western culture. And I think they have better outcomes as far as creating more educated adults. By the time you're picking someone, you have something to go to the table. They're not falling in love, being in a serious relationship at 15 and 16, becoming mothers. And I'm very proud of that, if nothing else. Both of my girls are done with their undergrad. One's a mechanical engineer, one's a biomedical engineer. And that, that I feel like now they're able to pick their spouse and not be chose only. And I find people to say, can you bring to the table what I bring to the table?
Interesting. Okay.
Now I hope to do the same with the son. So they tell me boys are different. So I hope he does this off of the, pretty face.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Did you have a thought on that, Anthony, before I move to this final round?
So I'm kind of looking at the younger one, our son, and he's wanting to participate in sports and stuff like that.
Yes.
And basketball is my first love, and he's expressed some interest in wanting to play sports and stuff. Just thinking back to what I thought about sports prior to entering adulthood, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen the documentary called Hoop Dreams.
Yes, I have.
So, there's this, I don't know what to say it is, but it's a pipe dream that's being sold to our community that everybody has this opportunity that they can go pro at professional sports. And the likelihood of it happening is so low, but so much time, energy, money is spent in the community where people are trying to make that happen. And it's just the likelihood is so low, and I never really wanted my son to get caught up in any of that. It's the camaraderie is great, and I appreciate that part of it, and the entertainment value of it that you get to see as an adult, watching these guys, perform at the highest levels. But I believe too much energy and money and time is spent by so many families, and sacrifices that energy can really be put into something else more constructive that they're going to be able to benefit from in their adult years. Because you think about the lifespan of a professional athlete, you see LeBron James has been playing for 20 plus years. Those guys, their careers typically don't last that long. A guy is lucky if they're able to maybe last 6 to 10 years if they're lucky in any given sport. And it's just the likelihood of it happening is so low, and so much time and effort is put into it. It's unfortunate to see that. I would just wish that it could be spent more on other things collectively in the community.
All right. You listen to What's Up Aboard TV, and we're talking to the Allen family, and we're going to do my favorite thing to show before we end right quick. And this is called Get to Know You Rapid Fire Questions. I'm just going to ask you guys like 10 quick questions. Just tell me the first thing comes to mind, and then we'll go from there. First question is, how often do you tell your spouse how you feel about them? And is it necessary to do that every day?
Every day.
Yeah, multiple times a day.
Okay, all right. Is it hard for either of you to answer yes or no questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Why is that?
I'm a talker.
I like to provide supporting details as to why what my stance is. It's
even
never
when it's yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony, you need supporting evidence when you give an answer or when you're receiving it?
Both.
Which was it?
Both. Because
Okay.
I give information I'm seeking clarity for understanding, and I want to be understood. It's never simple yes or no. When I usually answer those questions, I'll say the short answer is yes, and here's why.
Okay. So if you say, well, you want to go eat? Well, yes.
You say yes, but this is what I want to eat today. This is because he watches what he eats, and I ate this earlier today, and this is why this would be. Yeah, so it's like, yeah.
Okay. Then this question
There's no quick yes or no.
Got it. I think for me, I like my question to be answered directly first, and then you could explain.
Yes.
That's just me, but yeah, favorite. This question is for both of you to ask about the other. What's something you think your partner would like to change about you that you think they would like to change about you?
I would say my husband is type A. He's very clean, and that's something I am not. I am not type A. I'm a clutter bug. I always have like different little spots where I like to build forts, of stuff. And he likes things, everything has its place. And if he could change anything about me, it would be for me to be more clean.
Okay.
Clean. Right. What's another word for being clean? Organized.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I got you.
I like that word better because I'm not very good organization skills. I just be putting everything together. Yeah.
Organized is the word. I understand that it's a challenge for some people, and her in particular. The one he would probably like for me to change, I don't know. I never really thought about it that much because I think that she accepts me for who I am. But Probably being more outgoing.
Okay. All right.
I would agree.
Okay. What advice would you two give newlyweds or people considering marriage?
I think we have the same viewpoint, and that's let your person who's better at whatever it is that they do, let them do that, and whatever you're best at. You have to know what you're good at. You have to know what you're bringing to the table, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll agree with him. I think in marriage, we're not really big on gender roles in our household. It's like, what are you good at? I'm the better cook, so I do most of the cooking. Anthony's better organization skills, so he do most of the organization and laundry. So it's not this is what women do, this is what men do. We do what we're best at, and we contribute to the total household success. So to erase what's the expectation of the household, do what works in your household.
Definitely, I like that. What moment do you remember about your wedding day? Is there anything that stood out about your wedding day? Just like, oh, I'll never forget that.
For me, it was my mom being there.
Okay.
She was kind of she's gone now. She's passed. She was kind of the best word I could is a hermit. She didn't
introvert.
Oh, she was not an introvert.
Okay.
She was a hermit. She didn't get, because when she knew a lot of people. She didn't deal, like, she just didn't get out much. And I don't know if that was some health issues or trauma that, kind of kept her from getting out. But just her being there, because I wasn't sure if she was going to come. And it wasn't personal. It was just, she just wasn't the person.
Okay.
I would say just seeing, like, my dad walked me down the aisle and seeing Anthony down there and just like feeling like I had no question about if this was the right thing to do. Like, I knew all my heart, like, this, like he got me. Like, I ain't gotta worry. Like, I was going to my forever. Like, I never even thought for 1 second that we wouldn't be where we at today, because I just knew that that's my love. That's my love for life. That's what it's gonna be.
Okay.
That's my
Go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony.
favorite wife.
Right, that's right. How long should a couple date before getting married?
I think it depends on the age of the people getting married.
Mm-hmm. I think older people know what they want more consistently. I say, and they know who they are. So if you're 45, you're gonna know within a couple of weeks that person is gonna be there for you. It's not gonna take years. So I think it's basically not even, it's who you are first yourself. You got to know who you want and your expectations, and that person has to match up to that. So it's no time period for everyone. We had like 2 years, but some people it's quicker, but we were at different points in our life. We were trying to finish our undergrad degrees and what have you. But I think you have to know who you are and be ready for that commitment where you're going to have to, like, not be about yourself, but actually put another person.
Yeah. Plus, I think trying to climb out the friend zone, but go ahead.
The better question, I think, is how long is it too long to let somebody go? And when you realize the person isn't somebody you shouldn't be married, I don't think anybody should be dating 7, 10 years, 15 years, wasting your. To me, I think that's wrong.
Oh yeah,
that's me.
I agree.
I've done that. I know a lot of people that. What's more important for you, love or respect?
I would say love, because love is patient, love is kind, love is enduring. And love is all those things, because with love, if someone you truly love somebody, part of that is going to be honoring them. So respect doesn't have to be separated.
It doesn't separate it. That's the thing. So love is kind of part of the respect matter for me.
Okay. So that with the scripture alluding to, I believe that was 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4-8. I think you were on that, so appreciate you bringing that out. Clothing styles. Now, I know styles change over the years, and we know that Layla shops a lot. Anthony, how do you feel about her dress style? Is it something you like, or would you want her to do something different?
Not shop so much.
Oh, okay.
She's got a lot of flair. Me, my stuff is really classic, kind of contemporary. It's not really trendy. So the stuff that I pick out that I buy typically doesn't go out of style. So I have a hard time getting rid of stuff. But the stuff that I do get rid of is either because it doesn't fit properly, it doesn't look good anymore, or I just haven't worn it in a long time. And she buys a lot of trendy stuff. She buys contemporary stuff. She buys classic.
It's a mix.
Wow. Okay. And what you got? Is his style of dress okay to you, or you like it?
I love it. He's very classy. It's always consistently, I like that still to this day. I know my husband's gonna show up and he's going to always look good and represent me to the best. I am a kind of like I have a capsule closet. So every season I change out my closet, and I got summer jeans and some colors I don't wear in the fall, in the summer, So for me, yeah, certain colors I won't wear in the fall, like in the summer, spring. I got 2 different closets. So I think the 3 closets. So with that being said, I would say that I like the balance, because he's gonna always look very classy, so I could put on wherever and it's gonna look good, because I ain't gotta worry about him clashing, because it's gonna be something very classic. Me, I can do whatever. Don't matter where I look, it's gonna look good, because he's not competing with me. It's just me, just over the top. We balance each other. It's
Yes.
the yin and the yang.
Okay. Anthony, what do you think about makeup and weaves, hairstyle? I know a lot of women do those protective styles. What's your thought on those?
All things in moderation. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the lashes, as good as they look on some people, but sometimes there's a little overkill, and the damage that it does to the hair follicles is concerning for me. I think that that's the thing that people should be concerned about when they're deciding to do anything. What's the aftermath going to look like?
Right. And Layla, are you okay with those protective styles?
I wear all kind of hairstyles. Like, my hair be blonde today, it'll be red tomorrow. I do anything. I like it's so weird, because people always tell me your husband's like very traditional, very classic, and I'm like, you just don't know what you're gonna get from me. And I like the fact that he allows me to just, wherever I do, he's fine with it. He doesn't give me no grief about it. There's some styles he likes better than others. Some styles he just sort of look at me like, okay, that's what you come up with this week. And I know if he likes it though, because he'd be like, oh, wife, that look good on you, wife. I like that, wife. So I get that nod of approval. But if he don't like it, I get that sort of like, hope that one don't last long.
Okay. All right. That's good. Well, as we're coming to the end of this show here, is there anything that you guys wanted to touch on that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share before we move to this ending?
I would just say, if you consider getting married, being in a long-term relationship, make sure you keep God first. You have to really just be obedient to the Lord. And, I pray for Anthony. And I tell people that years before I met him, I prayed when I decided I wasn't going to be with my kid's father. I had a very particular prayer. I pray that God would send me a man that will be a father to my daughters and be a helpmate to me. And I wanted to get somebody before they got older, because I wanted to get somebody who can look at them with the eyes of a kid, to look at them as little girls and not women. And my prayers were answered. God exceeded what I wanted. And I had wrote myself a letter when I was in college of how I wanted my life to be in 5 years. And within 5 years of being with him, I woke up and that was my dream come true, was having that husband there to support me and to feel loved and complete and to have a family. So as single mothers, I would say, don't count yourself out. Don't carry that trauma, get help for yourself, and to make sure that you try to find somebody, not just for you, but somebody who can also help balance out your future with your kids and your whole family.
Okay. Anthony, you have a final thought on that?
I guess my biggest thing is, when in relationships, some people always look at who the winner is. There's going to be times in life where one of you is going to be going through something unique, and you're going to have somebody who's going to be able to, that you can lean on, in hopes that they can still be supportive, as opposed to, if you get sick or something, You just want somebody basically that respects you and respects what marriage is. Some people are focused so much on the wedding day and marriage. Those are two different things. And definitely, I wouldn't. The biggest thing I think that I will share with someone is do not overshare the issues that you are experiencing at your household with someone who is too biased. I wouldn't like to share information with parents. If you got a really good friend, you know who's your ride or die person, who's going to kind of step back and look at things objectively and not be too biased. And everybody knows who those friends are, not certain things.
I agree, because you will forgive your spouse and they will hold that against you for forgiving them. And your commitment is forever, not for some time. So it's best to not get everybody involved in your relationship and be very protective of that, what is going on in your household, because so many people, you think they're cheering for you, but they really would like to see the demise of your relationship. Satan works in many ways, and he can work through people. And a lot of people are unhappy. And sometimes they want that same unhappiness for you. And they could help you see what's worse, what's not best in a relationship. So I think it's important to have positive people around you and to, like you said, everything that happens between you don't need because your parents are going to take your side. Your siblings are going to take your side. You don't want them involved.
Right. Yeah.
And when it's sides to be taken.
Yes. I call that cognitive dissonance when they're going to be on your side no matter what. Like get that one drunk uncle that everybody at the party like, oh my God, who is him? But your family love him to death because they know him. They go, oh, he's like that.
Yes.
So, they're gonna be on his side no matter what. So you're right. It's definitely been a pleasing pleasure speaking with you two here today about relationships. I know it's not easy to be vulnerable with someone, especially coming on a platform like this. So I definitely want to thank you guys for that. Are either of you on social media? If you want to give your social media handles where you are, if not, that's okay.
I'm on Instagram as Mrs. Lulabelle. Lulabell. Mrs. Lulabelle. And I'm very active on social media. Okay. Anthony's not so much. But the weird thing I always tell my daughters, I always encourage them to look for guys who are not very active on social media with dating. Because I feel like sometimes you don't want to get guys who post too many pictures because I feel like they're looking for attention. But then I don't feel like that for women. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased.
Man.
I don't know. I don't know. I tell them, I said, you don't want a guy who's going to be high maintenance. But I guess I don't look at it as women being high maintenance. So I do have some bias. I think because my husband's so laid back, I want them to have the same happiness that I have. Yes. And I always tell them the serious thing I do tell them, I said, you want to get a protector and a provider. Not that you need him to provide for you, but you need somebody who's going to come into it with the mindset they want to be your protector. They want to be your provider.
Yes. Okay. All right. Before I get my final thoughts, I just want to mention that if you want to find some more great marital advice, you can always go to www.jw.org for Bible-based advice and examples for people who have made life changes as well. And let me get my final thoughts before we get out of here. My final thoughts are these. Marriage is an institution created by God between one man and one woman, so it's definitely a very good thing. The problems begin when one or both parties choose not to follow the advice of the Creator. I suggest that the married couples get to know each other by having open, honest communication, making time for each other, and having a threefold cord with God at the center. Try it for yourself. The game is easy to do, but the hustle is sold separately. Someone told me that someone said that. So, in closing, if you have a story to share, I'm here for you. Please hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. If you heard something you like today, until next time, peace.
Peace.
Bye.
All right.